When We Disagree is a show about arguments, how we have them, why we have them, and their impact on our relationships and ourselves. Disagreements are events. They happen in real time between real people in real places, but they are also tools, ones that can help build or destroy our relationships. This podcast reflects on the importance of arguments in our lives, one story at a time. I'm Michael Lee, Professor of Communication and Director of the Civility Initiative at the College of Charleston. Today's guest is John Smith. John, tell us an argument story.
Well, this story dates back to about the 2020 elections. So at the time, I really had a disdain for Trump and Biden and just couldn't see myself voting for either of them. So I decided to investigate third-party options. And one of the politicians that really piqued my interest was Jo Jorgensen, because she had a really different perspective on looking at things. She sees that the government has too much control over our daily lives, and I've never really sided with the conservative opinions regarding abortion, gun control, and all that, as well as the liberal sides of things too, which are like the enormous amount of government programs, and just the fact that she offered a different alternative that was non-establishment and provided different perspectives to me was really intriguing.
Who are you arguing with about your support for Jo Jorgensen's candidacy?
Honestly, like I would just like post on my Instagram story like Jo Jorgensen, and I just get like a bunch of different people regarding me, like, as stupid, she's never gonna win, which I knew at the time. Of course she wasn't gonna win. When was the last time an independent's become the president?
What were all the arguments that people made on social media or in real life about your support for Jorgensen?
Well, like, I just got a bunch of hatred from people on both sides because I've never really ever identified with one side or the other. So like, I'd get hate from my liberal friends being like, if you don't vote for Biden, then Donald Trump's gonna win and he's gonna, destroy trans rights and, take away our civil liberties. And then I'd get arguments from my conservative friends. Oh, if you don't vote for Trump, you're gonna, all the guns are gonna get taken away and we're gonna be in a communist country.
And did you respond? Did you, as they say, feed the trolls? Did you engage with people in argument and counter argument on social media?
Yeah, I definitely did. I've learned to not do that. And I really don't post political stuff unless it's just like a very light meme at this point.
So this was kind of a learning experience for you, saying, here I am, I support a third party, and this is why I support a third party. And then getting, as you said, hate from people. It sounds like making some pretty extreme arguments that because of your vote, we're essentially going to lose our life and our liberty and our livelihood because you're helping or hurting Trump or Biden get elected, right?
Right, yeah, on both sides. And it became very clear to me after I lost a couple friends that it just wasn't worth it to express my political opinion, and I could get better feedback by just not doing that.
Talk about the losing of friends. You had real relational consequences because of this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's people that still don't talk to me over it. And I think that's like ridiculous because I had a different viewpoint. I mean, I think we as a society need to work together to express our different viewpoints and to learn from each other. Whereas just, I'm not going to talk to you anymore because you think differently from me.
Why do you think if you can put yourselves in their head, I know you're not speaking to one another, the relationship has ended, but so it's hard to get in the head of somebody who won't talk to you, but put yourself in their heads. I mean, what do you think that's about? They're kind of shunning you in a way.
I mean, I just feel like they probably felt betrayed by my opinion, and that I guess for the issue of like trans rights, I had a bunch of trans friends from high school who couldn't understand that I wasn't actively like against them at all by supporting somebody else, and the candidate who I supported never has spoken on the issue anyways, but they felt like I was attacking them for who they are, which is not the case at all.
Can you envision a scenario, to take the flip side, can you envision a scenario in which you found out something about a close friend political, let's say, keep it political, and you found out that your close friend supported or didn't support this thing that was near and dear to you, how would you square that with your friendship? In other words, how do you square differences with your friends?
I mean, I think that I established early on with my friends that if we're going to be able to debate civilly, and if somebody just wants to argue with me, then I just like exclude that from our friendship. I won't engage with it, because it's just not worth it to lose more friends over silly little disagreements.
If you and I are close friends and we happen to have an open disagreement about the First Amendment or the Second Amendment, or pick an amendment, then you and I carry on as friends, and we just sort of agree to disagree on that issue, and we just don't talk about the First or the Second Amendment. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. It's just not worth it.
We just go and watch NFL games or
Yeah.
do whatever we do,
Yeah.
and make sure not to cover the third rail, not to talk about this disputed territory.
And I mean, sometimes it comes up and it gets a little heated, but I think I've become a lot better about being able to like disengage from that conversation and just change the topic to something that we both can agree on, you know?
Do you think, stretching out a bit, I mean, we've all heard, especially after 2016 and 2020, stories that are a lot like yours. Somebody posts something or consistently posts something in support of a position that they believe in passionately, let's say, assuming they're a faithful actor. And then there is disagreement. That disagreement becomes hostile. Families are broken apart. Relationships are destroyed. We cannot agree to disagree, as the phrase goes. Do you think there's any sort of positive role socially for arguing about politics online?
Honestly, I mean, unless it's productive where people can learn from each other, I don't think that it's productive at all. It just causes dispute, and it's just a waste of time, fuels hatred, and further rises our political polarization.
What about in real life? What changes when we take the dispute about Jurgensen's third-party candidacy or Biden or Trump offline and make it online and in person and in real life?
I think
that has similar destructive potential for sure. Or is there something unique about social media that makes it easier, in your opinion?
Oh, I completely think that there's something about social media that just like dehumanizes us. It like allows people to hide behind a wall of the internet, and it's people say stuff that they would never ever say to somebody in real life.
And yet it has these real life consequences because, as you say, the things that you and several friends were saying to one another led to the end of in real life relationships, not just acquaintances you had on social media.
Yeah. And I think the like turning point where I finally realized that it wasn't worth debating was when I had a friend freshman year of college that I had planned to move in with for sophomore year and maybe the foreseeable future until graduation. I was over at another one of our mutual friends' house watching a conservative perspective on I can't remember what it was on, and he came in and just got so offended about it, and he left. And I was like, you know, I would have turned off the TV if I had known that was going to make you leave. Like, you know, I want to be friends. And then a few weeks later, he was like, I don't want to live with you anymore.
Was there ever an explanation about why the reaction?
I mean, it was like a pretty controversial issue at the time, and it was definitely a lot of division between both sides of the argument. But the thing was, like I said, I was just exploring the different perspectives because I like to view different perspectives and gain insight to see what each side has to argue, what facts they put forth, and how I can learn from them.
So you're somebody who is looking around for good information and hopefully, in your mind, determining what you believe based on the facts, but
Right.
not having a filter about which facts are allowable before you make your determination. And so if you're letting the facts guide your belief system, then you kind of have to look around to find the appropriate ones to figure out what you believe, right?
Right.
How does this experience change or help or hurt that pursuit, the pursuit of facts, the pursuit of truth for you to figure out what's right and true in the world? When you now know that if you express some things, there's going to be real life or online consequences.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even in like classroom debates, like I usually just try and stay out of it and keep my thoughts to myself unless I can offer something that's pretty non-political, which is kind of unfortunate, I feel like, because I thought the whole point of coming to college was to explore different viewpoints and to learn from them.
You feel like you've increased your self-censorship, not to put words in your mouth, but
No,
is that
yeah.
something you would
Oh,
agree
yeah,
with?
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. What else do you think that what are other consequences from this? Self-censorship, certainly not wanting to deal with certain topics in relationships.
Just a further disdain for politics, which is something that I used to be really interested in and wanted to discuss and, help people to form their own opinions and to educate themselves around the topic.
And as an arguer too, as somebody who, it sounded like at least in 2020, you were willing to mix it up, put yourself out there, say that I have a relatively unpopular or atypical opinion on the 2020 election with my support of this candidate, and now don't introduce it at all. Now a little more evasive, a little more, maybe not evasive, but avoidant.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Let's keep it on neutral topics. Super nice day outside today, 70-degree weather. What'd you
Right.
have for breakfast? Only neutral topics.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, if something really matters to me, life or death, like I'll put it out there, but otherwise I just try and refrain.
I'm getting these two versions of you, John, coming up that I find interesting, and there's a conflict between them. One that really wants to pursue information and is deeply curious about political issues, varying opinions, inconvenient facts, perhaps. And then somebody who, since the 2020 election, really doesn't want to talk about politics at all. So you have an interest, but you can't have that interest in a relationship with other people without risking the relationship. How do you square those two? The person who's very curious about the world and the person who doesn't feel like the world is safe to talk about.
I don't know. It's definitely a tough balance. I mean, honestly, I would say that like with papers that I've written, I've like tended to like write perspectives that are different than mine, to appease like the general consensus that the professors and the fellow students have in the class. I mean, even when I disagree, I've just written the paper like I do agree. And it's just hard to have such an interest in politics and then just not be able to talk about it. It's definitely a balance. I mean, I have to find my outlets, and I have found friends that I can have productive discussions with and learn from each other. And it's honestly really nice when you have those interactions with people, because it reminds you that there are people who are civil and who are willing to discuss and not get so offended that they don't ever want to talk to you again.
John, thank you very much for coming on When We Disagree.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been great.
When We Disagree is recorded at the College of Charleston with creator and host Michael Lee. Recording and sound engineering by Jesse Kunz and Lance Laidlaw. Reach out to us at whenwedisagree@gmail.com.